we're all curious about living a long, healthy life, aren't we? Always looking for that magic formula.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a universal question, really.
So today we're taking a deep dive into something maybe a bit surprising, the link between playing sports and, well, longevity.
Hmm.
You shared some fascinating research with us. There's a big 2024 global review looking at tons of athletes.
Yeah, up to 100,000, actually.
Yeah.
And an interesting Australian study, too.
Right. So the goal today is pretty straightforward. Do athletes really live longer? And, if they do, which sports seem to give the biggest boost? Let's unpack it.
Okay. Well, the first thing that jumps out from that 2024 global review is pretty striking.
Yeah.
On average, the athletes they studied lived about 5 years longer than the general population.
5 years. Wow. Okay, that's actually quite significant.
It is a considerable difference.
So which sports did the review connect with this extra longevity? I have a feeling there might be some surprises in there.
You're right, there are. The review pointed towards sports like pole vaulting.
Pole vaulting.
Seriously.
Yeah. Pole vaulting, gymnastics, fencing. Also precision sports like archery.
Archery.
Yeah.
Okay, so less intense physical strain maybe, more focus.
That seems like it. Also, racket sports and even cricket showed up as a link to longer life expectancy.
Cricket. That's definitely not what I would have guessed first. Okay, so what about the other side? Which sports were linked to maybe not living quite as long?
Right. So the data there indicated a lower life expectancy for athletes in sports like sumo wrestling.
Okay, that one maybe makes a bit more sense given the physique.
Potentially, yeah. Also volleyball, mountaineering, martial arts, and handball.
So when you look at those two lists, the longer life ones and the shorter life ones, what are the potential reasons popping out? What factors did the review suggest?
Well, they highlighted a few key things. Body weight seems to be a factor. Also, the frequency and, severity of contact injuries.
Right, contact sports versus non-contact.
Exactly. And the overall intensity of the training came up, too. They gave the example of sumo wrestlers.
Even though they might earn quite a bit more money than, say, gymnasts, their lifespans tend to be shorter. The extreme body weight and the health issues that come with it likely play a big role.
That makes a lot of sense. It kind of pushes back against the idea that just more intense physical activity is always better for longevity.
It does suggest more nuance, yeah.
Now, you also mentioned that Australian study. Did it find similar things? How did its results compare?
The Australian research looked specifically at Olympic athletes, and generally it backed up the idea that elite athletes live longer.
Okay.
But, and this is important, they found exceptions, specifically rugby players and Australian football players.
Ah, so very high contact sports.
Yeah, exactly. Connecting that back, it really seems like the high level of physical trauma in those kinds of sports might, cancel out some of the longevity benefits you see elsewhere, even at that elite Olympic level.
So it's really not as simple as just saying playing sports adds years to your life. The kind of sport you play seems to matter a lot.
Precisely. That's the key takeaway. While being active, being involved in sports, generally seems good for longevity compared to not being active.
Right.
The specific demands, the risks, the type of physical stress involved in different sports can lead to really quite different outcomes long term. It's about that balance.
So for everyone listening, the main insight here is that, yeah, movement is good, but the type of activity you choose could have surprisingly different effects on how long you might live.
And that actually brings up a really interesting final thought, maybe. Considering these findings, what other factors, perhaps ones we overlook, might contribute to longevity, not just in sports, but in any activity?
Like what kind of factors?
Well, maybe the nature of the physical stress itself. Is it repetitive, low impact, like, say, swimming? Or is it high intensity with that constant risk of injury, like rugby? Or, maybe even the mental side. The social aspects of team sports versus individual ones, could those play a bigger role than we realize?
That's a great question. Definitely something to think about beyond just the physical exertion itself when considering, our own paths to a long and healthy life.
Exactly. Food for thought.